Right.
Okay, and as we move along, we're doing Daf Lamed Omid Aleph. And let's have a look. If you remember, let's just get back into this. We were looking at the view of Rav Huna, and we'll hopefully go further into this, the argument actually between Rashi and the Rambam on this, which is quite fascinating, but we'll see that in due course, hopefully. Omar Rav Huna, if you remember, and we looked at a couple of views about what Rav Huna said. Remember, he said, Echad Yavne v'echad kol mokom sheyesh bo bezdin. And it's worth remembering, if you remember, on the Mishnah, what are we talking about here? We're talking about Rosh Hashanah falling on a Shabbos. And we said after the time of the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai instituted that, yes, on Shabbos, it sounds like Yerushalayim or Yavne, or anywhere where there is a Bezdin. We said, Echad Yavne v'echad kol mokom sheyesh bo Bezdin, can blow the shofar on Shabbos, which is Rosh Hashanah. Notice Rashi says there, Elo b'Yavne bilvad, Echad Yach v'echad kol mokom sheyesh bo Bezdin. Yeah, you're blinking a bit, Robert, there. Yeah, so we're going to focus a little bit on this Bezdin. So in other words, you could blow in front of a Bezdin Kovua, yes, in front of the Bezdin Kovua, and Rav Huna said right in front of them. So it's not just they're sitting, it's when they're actually, you're right in front of them, and there you can blow. Other people are blowing the shofar on a Shabbos, Rosh Hashanah, in front of a Bezdin Kovua, a fixed Bezdin. Now, we'll see more about that as we move through. Then we saw a second view where Rav Huna is actually talking about the Yom Kippur, which is Yovel. Now, of course, the same rules will apply. Shabbos, Rosh Hashanah will be equivalent to Yom Kippur being the Yovel, where the shofar is going to be blown, but the same points about carrying, and therefore we said the same rule applies. So on Yom Kippur of the Yovel, and that's where we saw the view of Rav Huna, at the time when because the Pasuk says at Yovel, you blow everywhere in the whole country, but it's only at a time when Bezdin are sitting. So let's pick this up where it says massive Rav Sheshes. So it's about 8 wide lines down in Daf Lamed Omid Aleph. And we're focusing on at the time, if you're talking about the Yovel, so it's Yom Kippur of the Yovel where the shofar is going to be blown, but it's Yom Kippur. It's not just a normal Yom Tov, it's Yom Kippur. We said that you can blow anywhere at a time when Bezdin is sitting. Okay. Now it says massive Rav Sheshes. Rav Sheshes asked a question. It looks like this is coming from a brisa, as it's quite a lengthy piece. People have got that? Massive Rav Sheshes. Okay. Now, Shover HaYovel LeRosh Hashanah. Yom Kippur, which is Yovel, is similar to Rosh Hashanah, and here we're talking about Rosh Hashanah falling on a Shabbos. Okay? Good to see you, Sam. About 10 wide lines down in Daf Lamed Omid Aleph, where Rav Sheshes says the following: Shover HaYovel Rosh Hashanah. Yovel, the Yom Kippur of Yovel, is similar to Rosh Hashanah. Litkiyah, regarding the blowing of the shofar, there's a mitzvah to blow the shofar, b'chol artzachem, taviru shofar b'chol artzachem, applying to that Yovel year, and to the brachos. So the long Rosh Hashanah Amida of Musaf is applicable also to Yovel. it sounds like they're going to be all those psukim of Zichronos, Shofros, Malchias, etc. That would also apply to the Yovel, whatever day it falls, not necessarily Shabbos, any day it will be the same. But there are slight differences. Continues the Gemara, beginning line Uli Brochis, Elo, Sheba Yovel Toikin Bain Bezdin. In Yovel, you can blow whether in front of the Bezin Shekidshu Bo Es HaChodesh, that actually sanctified the month, special Bezdin, Bain Bezdin Shelo Kidshu Bo Es HaChodesh. Could be other bote dinim too. V'chol yochid v'yochid chayev litkoya. Every individual was blowing the shofar. But on Rosh Hashanah, lo hoyotokin, they only blew elo bebezin shekidshu bo'es hachodesh. That's the first thing to note. This is Shabbos, Rosh Hashanah, only in front of, so it's a fairly major bezdin here, a bezdin shekidshu bo'es hachodesh, not necessarily the bezdin hagodol that moved from Yerushalayim to Yavne, etc., but still a bezdin that was a Makadosh L'Chodesh, only that bezdin. Wow. V'ein kol yochid v'yochid chayev litkoya. Now this is the piece which looks very strange. This price is saying that when it comes to Rosh Hashanah falling on a Shabbos, ein kol yochid v'yochid chayev litkoya. Every individual is not obliged. What does that mean? My ein kol yochid v'yochid chayev litkoya. What does that mean? If you want to tell me, it means, now we think at the moment, it doesn't mention Shabbos, but we think that it's just telling us that every individual is mechuyev to blow the shofar. Are you telling me that on Yovel, individuals would blow the shofar, Yovel, which is Yom Kippur, Uber Rosh Hashanah ein tokin yechidim, but on Rosh Hashanah, individuals do not blow the shofar if it falls on Shabbos. It would only be the actual bezdin themselves. So again, we are focusing on this comparison between Yovel, Yom Kippur Yovel, and Shabbos, Rosh Hashanah. And we're saying that on Rosh Hashanah, it sounds like there's no mitzvah on the individuals can't be blowing. It sounds like there's one bezdin blowing on Rosh Hashanah, falling on the Shabbos. Now, if you remember from last week, says the Gemara, Bohoki, also Rab Yitzchok Bar Yosef. When Rab Yitzchok Bar Yosef came, sounds like he was coming from Eretz Yisrael, Omar, he said the following: Ki hava Masayim shalucha de tzibura tigiosa beyavne. When in Yavne, the main Baal Tokea was blowing, when he completed the blowing, Lo shoma inish kol one. Do you remember? People couldn't hear themselves think, if you like. That's a way of saying this. Mikal. Other individuals were blowing. Now, we learned last week, it's true, they were blowing, this is Shabbos, Rosh Hashanah, in front of the Bezdin, but all over the place, pockets of different minyanim were blowing. Maybe they weren't blowing simultaneously, but they were blowing all over the place, one after the other. So you see there that individual minyanim, it's true, it was in front of Bezdin, but how can you say that individuals were not blowing? They were blowing the shofar. So what it means is the following. When it talks about individuals, Elolav, on Yovel, it doesn't mean individuals, it means individual time. Look at this. In the Yovel, Tokim bein bizman Bezdin, ben sheloi bizman Bezdin. That's what it means. And it's an individual time. You can blow in the afternoon. Uber Rosh Hashanah, Bizman Bezdin in, Shelo Bizman Bezdin lo. That's what we think the difference is. It can't be that individuals are not blowing, because we know individuals blew the shofar on Rosh Hashanah on Shabbos. Yeah, per pockets near the Beis Din. So it doesn't mean that. What it means also, so we think it means, in Yovel, you blow whether it's the time of the Beis Din sitting or not. That's what it means, a yochid. But on Rosh Hashanah, Bisman Beis Din in, shelo Bisman Beis Din lo. That's what we think this means. It can't be individuals do not blow the shofar, because individuals were blowing the shofar. We know that. We've got evidence that that took place. But one thing we've seen from here, Ketoni mius biyovel, bein Bisman Beis Din, bein shelo Bisman Beis Din. That's the way we seem to be interpreting this brisa, which is in conflict with what we learned last week, where we said you only blow the shofar on Yovel when Beis Din is actually sitting. So this is a conflict.
What would be the Havamina for the difference between Yovel and Rosh Hashanah? Why should we have different stringencies between one and the other?
The reason is this. Yovel is, as we know, a one-off. You can't make too many stringencies on Yovel. It's not as if you can have Yovel, we'll wait for them. Whenever Yovel falls, it's always Yom Kippur. Rosh Hashanah is falling on Shabbos, doesn't always fall on Shabbos. So therefore, you'd expect, if you're going to make stringencies and chumras, that would be for a Rosh Hashanah falling on a Shabbos, where you can always look forward to next year, where you'd have the shofar blown in the full glory with no restrictions. Whereas Yovel, you can't do that. So you try to limit the restrictions to a Yovel, because Yovel is always going to be on Yom Kippur, which will be the same as Shabbos. Do you see the point? But the Gemara now says the following. No. La'olam bisman Beis Din. Even on Yovel, you only blew at the time when Beis Din was sitting. And this is the difference between Yovel, so that it's going to conform with what we saw Rav Huna last week. Bahochi Ketoni. This is the correct way to learn Pshat in that brisa. Yovel bisman Beis Din toikin, ben bifnei Beis Din, ben shaloi bifnei Beis Din. Only at the time Beis Din is sitting. Hopefully it's giving you that extra fear that you won't come and carry the shofar, but only when Beis Din is sitting, whether or not you're right in front of them or not. But on Rosh Hashanah, falling on a Shabbos, toikin bisman Beis Din ubifnei Beis Din, only right in front of Beis Din. So although it talks about yechidim not blowing, it means you cannot have pockets of minyonim unless they're right in front of the Beis Din. That's what that means. Okay? So the conclusion of the Gemara is that when it comes to Rosh Hashanah, which we are focusing on, you can blow, individuals could blow in front of the Beis Din. Minyonim or not, doesn't matter. Individuals could blow in front of that Beis Din. Obviously, a time when they're sitting, we've said, but in front of that Beis Din. Clearly, then, there'd be no problems at all. You've got the Beis Din in front of you. If you have any shaila at all, you're not going to run in the street to ask a shaila, because you've got the Beis Din sitting right in front of you. You're going to ask them, problem with the shofar, problem with the blowing. And therefore, that's why they were stricter with Rosh Hashanah. Yovel, less strict. But the point for us, when it comes to Rosh Hashanah, falling on a Shabbos, yes, like we learned last week, you can only blow the shofar in front of the Beis Din. And now we've added a different point. It's got to be a Beis Din kavum even more from this brisa. It sounds like only that Beis Din, which actually was Makadish and Machadish the Chodesh. We'll see more about this in the Rambam in a moment. Itzma Nami. We've got another statement which actually acts as a support to what we've seen before, which is the following. All we've got there, if you look at the Rashi, Lola Olam Bisman Beis Din, V'hochi Ke'omar. Rashi is saying, it looks like Rashi actually didn't have the words in the Gemara itself, because he's explaining exactly as the Gemara does, where we've actually got these words in the Gemara. So you can see, and there's a note I've got in my Gemara telling me it looks pretty clear that those words were not in the version, the text, the actual text of the Gemara itself, because Rashi says exactly what we've got in the Gemara. V'hochi ka'oma, have you got that, Rashi? V'yovel kol yochid v'yochid tokea bizman bezdin, afilu shaloi bifnei bezdin. But on Rosh Hashanah, bifnei bezdin in, shaloi bifnei bezdin lo. So this now is supporting what we've said before. And of course, it does not mean when it says Yechidim are not cannot blow the shofar on Rosh Hashanah. They can, as long as you're in front of Bezdin. But you can't blow individuals all around the country. That is not on. Back to our Gemara, Itma Nami. Beginning of line is Nami. Omer Rab Chia bar Gamda. Omer Rab Yosef ben Shaul. Omer Rebbe. Going back right back to Rabbi Yehuda Hanossi himself. Ein toikin ela kol zman shebezdin yoshtin. You can only blow when kol zman shebezdin yoshtin, but no further than that. It seems to be kol zman shebezdin yoshtin. Now, whether this is the problem. It's not that clear. All we've got is this itmanami. It sounds, as Rashi said here, this is meant to be a support of Rav Huna. Look at Rashi and you'll see it's talking about Yovel.
Norman, is this a physical bifnei basis, or do they actually have to be sitting there, the people? I mean, can you go to the courtyard where the Beth Din would normally sit, or does it have to actually be? Do the Dayanim actually have to be there?
Yeah, I think it means, with the comparison is Shelo Bifnei Bezdin, means with anywhere else in the town. It sounds like Bifnei Bezdin, perhaps we'll see more in the right. It sounds like Bifnei Bezdin in front of them, so you can actually get to them very clear. So you're right, in the area of the Bezdin, or so it seems.
They have to be physically be there. That's what I'm saying. The Dayanim.
Oh, they've actually got to be in the courts. They've got to be there. You mean your question is, do they have to be looking at them when they're blowing?
Well, yeah. I mean, could you go to Ardler House or whatever it is, and not
blow anywhere in there,
and they're not there. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it sounds like yes. Let's have a look at the Lashon of the Rambam and we'll see. But before that, let's have a look at this Rashi. Ein tokim yechidim b'yom kippur b'yovel elo bizman bezdin. That supports what Rab Huna said about Yovel. Elo bizman shebezdin yoshvin bim koimon v'atokim tokim b'chol ha'ir. But when it comes to Yovel, you could blow anywhere. Not right in front. There you are, right in front of the city, as opposed to being in Ardler House in those days. Then it's probably still called Ardler House, is it? They kept the name Ardler House. Yes. Okay. But it's when Bezdin is sitting in close Bifnei Bezdin. Now, there's one extra point here. When it says Bifnei Bezdin, and we said when Bezdin is sitting, what does that mean? That means that those rabbis are still in Ardler House, if you like. Have a look at Rashi, at the Gemara. Boy Rab Zera, Ninaru la'amoid. Ninaru, the Lashon l'na'er, to move. In other words, looks like they've closed us for him. They've said, okay, gentlemen, we can go home now. Don't forget, this is whether it's Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur. They're actually sitting in the Bezdin. Let's imagine it's Rosh Hashanah. They presumably want to go home as well. So they've said to each other, the rabbis, the Dayanim, they've said to themselves, Nina Rulalmoid. They've actually decided they're closing shop, if you like, Velo Omdu, but they haven't yet stood up and left the area. Okay? But they've closed. There are no more shilas for today. Look at Rashi. Nina Rulamud Nekru Mimo Shabom. They've moved from actually sitting down. Because they're on the way to leave the premises. Okay, but they're still around. Is that still considered in front of Besdim or not? It's a good question. Besdin Yoshvin Bo'inon. Does it mean the Besdin are actually sitting, which means therefore they're actually sitting, and therefore Yekon Paskin and Shaila, you could come and ask them. Voho'ika. Ooh. Odilma Zaman Besdin Bo'inon Veleka. Do you mean Yoshvin? And the Gemara is learning differently. Sitting means they're sitting in their place. They may have closed shop, but they're sitting there, and therefore you still catch them. Oh, before you go, Rabbi, can I just ask you a question? So does it mean sitting? When it says here Yoshvin, it doesn't mean sitting and they're still actually in the process of paskening. Look at this. Oidilma zaman bezdin bu'inin beleke. It means actually at the time, they're there till midday. It's now slightly beyond midday. That's not Zman Bezdin anymore. I'm sorry. I know that Rabbonim are still there, but they're now on, they're off duty, if you like. Now, maybe that's not good enough. It's sorry, too late. The Gemara ends up with a teku on that. Teku, which means tishti yitaretz, which means it's left open. It's not actually concluded. So which one of those will it be?
How actually, Norman, the Tosfos seems to say, just notice, ain't a Kolzman Shiur. He seems to imply that they actually have to be physically sitting there, not just, if I've read it right.
Sorry, which Tosfos are you looking at?
The little one. There's only one I can see on my plate. The little one at the bottom.
Kol zaman sheyoshvin. What do you mean? Ela bizman shebezdin yoshvin. What does that mean?
So it says here,
no, he's just.
It's afilu b'fnei basin, even before basin, ain't talking out of Kosman Shiur. So this is the question we were asking, isn't it?
No, that still doesn't tell you whether it's right in front of them or in Adler House type of thing. That's still b'fnei bezdin. In other words, what does b'fnei bezdin mean? Does it mean b'fnei bezdin when bezdin are sitting, or b'fnei bezdin when you're in front of? Now, you're right. There are two ways you can understand that. In front of, because they're still knocking around type of thing. They may have closed their sforim, but they're still there. They're yoshvin. Do you see what I mean? You could still learn either way there. Do you see what, yeah?
Yeah, okay.
In other words, that's Gemara's question. Does it mean bifnei, they're bismanche bezdin yoshvin? They are still sitting there. They've just closed their sforim. They've actually, it's come to midday. They're, it's the end of their session, but they're still around. They're still sitting there. Or does it mean only bisman bezdin? It means when bezdin is sitting available to answer shilas before they've actually closed shop. But you're right. The normal interpretation would be bifnei bezdin. We were, right in front of them. But does it mean right in front of them, or when they're actually in the process of answering shilas, or if they're just, as long as they're still sitting there, they're just, getting their things, togs together type of thing, but they're still sitting there. That's the Gemara's question. It's left open. Teku. In other words, have you got that extra time or not? Now, how would you expect to paskin on this teku? Let's have a look, please, Peter, the Rambam. And for this, we'll go to the Rambam. Let's have a look.
Which is and this will... No, the based in, they may have shut down officially.
Yes.
They may have shut down officially, but they're around, okay? They may have stood up. Somebody comes along with a shiloh about the Kisha, what are they going to do? Refuse to answer?
No, you're quite right. Absolutely right.
So if they're going to refuse to answer...
No, you're right. Of course, even, out of business.
In practice, it's as if they're sitting for the purpose of the shofar.
You're right. But maybe the ruling they made was it's only until midday. You're quite right. You could ask another shaila, but maybe they made that just a firm time. Otherwise, there's always a question, he is in the building, he's not here. I think he's still here, he's not here. When they're still sitting, I mean, you're right. logically, it shouldn't make a difference as long as they're around. But once you start saying it's beyond the time they're meant to be asking, maybe they're not there, maybe they are there. One thing you know for sure, if it's the time when business is open, they're going to be there. That's really, so it's really a point here. Did they make this firm gezerah that it's only actually in their time when they're open hours, or if they're still around? You're right, logically it shouldn't make a difference, but you could say maybe this principle was quite firm. Now let's have a look here. The Rambam. Oh, well done. Oh no, I'm in the Rambam. Go back a bit. Sorry, go to Safaria. Right, go to Halacha. You're quite right. I'm sorry, I didn't explain where to find this. Now look at Mishnah Torah coming in number 1 on that list. Now go to, this is the Rambam. It's in English, so we can't really see. Scroll down a little bit. Sefer Zemanim. Oh, I like that. Rest of the 10th of Tishri. What does that mean in English? That's not the one we want, by the way. Resting on the 10th of Tishri. It doesn't mean the rest of the halachas, actually. But anyway, go, scroll down. I'm just noting this translation. Go to Shofar, Sukkah, and Lulav. Up. No, you've gone too far. Bit more. There, Seder Zmanim, Shofar, Sukkah, and Lulav. And according to this side here, it tells me it's in Perek base. Now let's scroll down a little bit. And we want probably Ches and Tes, 8 and 9. Not all the halachas of the Rambam here. 8 and 9, hold on, where are we up to? 7, 8, here we are. Just go to 7 for a second. Yeah, that's a talk about the children blowing, etc. We saw that in the earlier pair. Now go to, right, 8. Just to get into this. You may have to blow it up slightly. A bit of make it slightly larger for us. Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's good. Oh, yeah, you've got translation as well. Now look how the Rambam's learning. This is the conclusion of this piece. There is one extra piece actually, but we'll get to that in a minute. But I just want to point on this. Avol bisman shehoya mikdash kayim, when it's in existence, or your bezdin hagodol birushalayim, or your token. Look at this, everyone. Or you hakol token birushalayim b'Shabbos, kol sheman shebezin hoya yoshvin. Skip the next bit because then that's an. So in other words, we're saying number one, it's certainly not just in front of Bezdin. It's anywhere. In the moment, we're going to see the second half of this Mishnah, which, if you remember, said not only that, there's an additional leniency for Yerushalayim. We haven't seen that yet, but drop down. Right now, drop down to the next halacha. Here we are. Ubizman hazeh shechora b'mikdash kol makom sheyesh bo bezdin kavua. He wants a fixed bezdin. V'hu sheyes somuch be'eretz Yisrael. Woo! Translated here, they have to have received the smicha in Eretz Yisrael, the special smicha in Eretz Yisrael, which enabled them to actually pass on that smicha to others. Sheyes somuch be'eretz Yisrael tokim bo b'Shabbos. The ain tokim b'Shabbos ela. Now, this is even more. But Bezdin shekitshu es hachodesh, as we've just seen in that brisa here today. Avul shar bote dinim, every other Bezdin, ein toikim bohem, afapishen semuchim. So this brisa is telling him something further. Not only must it be a very worthy Bezdin, it's actually got to be a Bezdin which actually pronounced that month Mekudesh Mekudesh. Remember the previous Prokim when they came, the visibility of the moon, and then they would announce it was Rosh Chodesh. Very interesting. Now continue on. Now this is fascinating. Ve'ein toikin ela bifnei bezdin hagodol bilvad. Now what's this bezdin hagodol bilvad? He's just said before that it's not just a bezdin hagodol, it's any bezdin which was somach. Do you see my point? Furthermore, the Shiur, I'm going to the English, and said, only in a court that has sanctified the new moon, further. However, the shofar will not be sounded in other courts, even though no. Also the shofar is sounded only in the presence of a high court. Well, you just said it wasn't a high court. Press number 7, I think it's going to bring here, he must. Our translation of Bezdin HaGol is based on the case of Mishnah. We explained that in this context, the Torah refers to an established court of judges with smicha, and not the Supreme Sanhedrin, as it, okay, you with me? Stop there. Otherwise, you'd have a problem with a contradiction in the Rambam himself. He just said it's not the Bezdin HaGadol, but it's any Bezdin, of course, where the smicha took place, where there was smuchim. Continue, it's got another note now here. Indeed, authoritative manuscripts of the Mishnah from Yemen. There you go. When's your next trip to Yemen, Mervyn? Omit the word Godol from the above expression. So there you are, a text. So very good. Go back to our text in Hebrew. So that's very interesting. So yes, it's got to be a Bezdin. That's like our Mishnah learned. Our Mishnah said, no, any Bezdin, but it's got to be kavua. It's got to be fixed. We've now defined fix as being the Bezdin where they actually said Mekudesh Mekudesh. So Ein Tokim, go back to the arrow, Ein Tokim Ele Bifnei Bezdin Godel. In this instance, it means Bezdin Godel, means that Bezdin which has, it's called Godel. It doesn't mean the very big Bezdin. And just mentioned there's some texts who leave that word out. Look, now, this is the point. Kolzman Shen Yoshnim, whenever they're sitting, Afilu Nina Rulamoid, even if they've got themselves ready to move, they're moving to stand up. They're still, they're packing their bags, type of thing. That's exactly what we saw in our Gemara today. Tokim bifneim. Now it's quite right, Mervyn. From here, it does sound very much like it really is right in front of them, that bifneim, because otherwise he should have said, nearby and within the same house, within the same precinct or something. You've got that bifneim, which does look, it really is right in front of them. There we are. Avol chutz lebezdin ein tokin. Now, if you look at that, it sounds like outside the bezdin, outside the house, maybe where the bezdin is. So it's still not entirely clear. Now, this is the point. V'loma tokin bifnei bezdin, mipnei she bezdin zerizin hen. They are going to be very quick. V'lo yovo atokim lahavish shofar bifneim. Bishus harabim. They're not going to wander out into the street with their shofar. Notice, interesting. Shebezdin mazhirem esuam modim. They'll tell them not to. Interesting. I would have thought the Rambam would have said, because they've got the bezdin in front of them, there's no point going anywhere else, unless you want to say that maybe the bezdin's got a lot of people in front of them and they can't bother to wait. And I know a good rabbi down the road. I'll go and ask him. So just to cover that point. It won't happen. If you're in front of Bezdin, it will not happen that you will be leaving the Bezdin, and therefore it would be okay in those circumstances. Okay, thank you very much indeed. Now, woo. So you see how we're paskening this teiku. In our in our Gemara, remember we had 2 views, and we ended up with a teiku. Yeah, people agree with that or disagree? Yeah? Remember the Mishnah said, which one is it? Is it when they're sitting or when they're, as long as they're there type of thing, they haven't actually left, or if they're actually in it's their time slot, and they're actually meant to be answering shilas at this time. Do you remember that was, Simon, your point? You see clearly, as long as they're still sitting, means they're still around, even if they're packing their bags, type of thing, getting their kiddush ready if it's Rosh Hashanah. Then that would still be good enough. Why do we? So we're passing leniently here, although it's left as an open question, a teku. Have a look, please, at commentary, Peter. Let's go for the Magid Mishnah, not the Kesef Mishnah. Magid Mishnah, well before that, actually. Magid Mishnah from Spain. The Magid Mishnah. And look what he said at the last comment, or Mashe Kosov, the final comment of the Magid Mishnah. Mashe Kosov Rabbeinu Bezdin Shekitchu Es HaChidesh, Braisa Shom, V'chein Shah Dvorim Uvorim Shomi, all in the Gemara. Now the final two lines of the Magid Mishnah. The Nina Rulamo, they're preparing to get up and leave, although they've now closed shop. Boi, it's a question which is not actually resolved in our Gemara. Ulakula. However, the Rambam is paskening leniently. Why? The fish it's a gezerah midrabanon, as we've said. Strictly speaking, nothing wrong with blowing the shofar anywhere. It's a gezerah lest you come to carry, and therefore, as it is midrabanon, quite an important principle here. He said that's worth remembering. A teku, which is midrabanon, it looks like the Rambam would pasken leniently. It is midrabanon. Yes, it's a question unanswered. Teku normally means let it stand, or as some people say, it stands for tishbi yitaretz kushas v'bayis. We wait in time to Zman Mashiach to answer this one, but it's left open really. Teku means it stands, but although the Magid Mishnah telling us, although it stands, we're still going to be lenient because it's a teku. It's an open question, unanswered, but it is midrabanon. As we know, because min haTorah, you can certainly blow the shofar on Rosh Hashanah falling on a Shabbos, min haTorah. Okay, thank you very much. Peter. Right. Oh, actually, Peter, just before you go, can we go back to Sefaria? Just to show you about. Go up to, this is worth seeing, you see where it says search? The search on the right-hand side, up, put in there, Magid, M-A-G-G, Magid, Mishnah. Oh, there we are, it's already down. Come down and just click on that one. Magid, Mishnah, you should tell us a little bit about it. There we are. Vidal of Tolosa, there you go. French Rabbinic authority, read and known about him. His life, he's better known. Magid Mishnah, his great work. People just call him the Magid Mishnah. Only part of this work had been preserved, sadly. He's a source for Rambam's rule, defends him against criticism, so is the Ravid, so he would answer up questions. Worth remembering that. Very early notice. Died 1360, they've got here. So there you are. And yeah, so his name, we've got Vidal of Tolosa. Please remember that. From French rabbi, I think he was born in Spain. Vidal Tolosa. There you go. Thank you. You've got to be able to see Yerushalayim. Besides, if you're down the bank somewhere, slope, you can't see Yerushalayim, even though you may be very near. You've got to be able to, he says here, remember, here. So you've got to be close, even though you can see, you may be very high up. If you can see, but you can't hear anything, that would be considered too far. You've got to be within the tchum, and you've got to be able to get there. If you have all that together, then not just Yerushalayim itself, but it will be spread further. Could also blow the shofar, and it sounds like because you're that close to Yerushalayim, You've got like the fear of Yerushalayim, the respect and fear of Yerushalayim, which would mean, therefore, that even though it's Shabbos, you're not expected that you're going to be running in the street with the shofar, because you've got there the fear. You're in the area of Yerushalayim. Particularly, don't forget, you've got to be able to see Yerushalayim. So you can see Yerushalayim, and that, of course, is full of special Eimu and Yira, special Kavona. I don't know if anybody's been to the house of Nabental in the old city. Yeah, you've been there. We were there for a Shabbos. Quite an amazing Shabbos that was. Talk about it sometime. But yeah, you actually overlook. You not just overlook Yerushalayim. You can see the coastal from there. So it's feel a bit bad. Careful, anything you say, do, or how you behave. You're like it's like being in front of the shul the whole time, but even more, you're actually you're there in front of Yerushalayim. So the same thing here. If you can see Yerushalayim here, could get there. Then the same rules would apply. That we're not concerned that somebody will desecrate the Shabbos, and therefore it would also be permitted. And those rules. I'm not going to push you, Peter, but those rules are found in the Rambam, quoting those rules that we've got here in the Gemara. So, yes, it continues as we've seen in the Mishnah. So, very good, gentlemen. That is the end of that Mishnah. Let's move along. Next Mishnah. Borish Shoina. Hoyolulav nitel b'mikdosh shivas yomim. Originally, the lulav was taken by mikdosh. Notice only in the mikdosh area for 7 days. Ubimdina yom echad, and outside Yerushalayim. Outside the Beis HaMikdash area, we've spoken about this before. When it says B'mikdash, what does it mean? Does B'mikdash mean only in front of the Beis HaMikdash? Or does it mean in the old city? The whole old city would be considered the Mikdash area. The Rambam holds it means anywhere which is in the old city, or certainly next to the coastal area, etc. So yeah, there will be a mitzvah min Torah there for 7 days. Anyway, let's just continue on. We'll see. So originally, if you were not in Yerushalayim, even outside Rosh Pinah or Tel Aviv or wherever you like, or in Chutz La'aretz, the mitzvah of shaking a lulav was 1 day. Let's have a look at Rashi, please. Why? Because the pasuk says, and it says, "Usmachtem, be rejoice, full of simcha, with your Abba Minim, lifnei Hashem Elokechem, shivas yomim, 7 days. So you can rejoice with your Abba Minim min HaTorah for 7 days. But in Dina, outside the Beis HaMikdash area, only 1 day. Why? Well, the last half of that pasuk, which says "Usmachtim lifnei Hashem Elokechem," sadly, you can't do that because you're not there. You may be in London, so you can't fulfill "Usmachtim lifnei Hashem Elokechem shivas yomim," but everyone can fulfill the first part of that pasuk. What does the first part of the pasuk say? Interesting how we're splitting this pasuk. Ulokachtem lochem b'yom harishon. Now, have you got that pasuk on the side of your Gemara? I'm sure you have. Ulokachtem lochem b'yom harishon. You should take on the first day Pri'ei Todah, Kapos Tomorim, Anefes Ovas, V'Ave Nochal. There's the Esnachto. Esnachto means it's half a pasuk, a half a stop, not quite a full stop, but half a stop. That's the Esnachto. Yeah? So that first half applies to everyone, wherever you are. Take the lulav with the Abba Minim on the first day of Sukkot. Then you've got a second half of the Pasuk, which says, after the Snachta, Usmachtim lifnei Hashem Elokechem shivas yomim. With these Abba Minim, you can rejoice, not just be Yom Rishon, but for 7 days. So you see how this Pasuk is split into two halves. So, interesting. Therefore, outside Yerushalayim, there is a mitzvah only 1 day. Right? Continue the Mishnah. Umishechorav Beis Hamikdash. But there is a very interesting halacha. We, in this instance, are extending the mitzvah min haTorah. Mishechorav Beis Hamikdash Hiskin Rav Yochanan and Zakei Lulav Nital Bamdina. Bamdina means outside Yerushalayim. Shiva, 7 days. Why? Zeichel Mikdash, a memory of the time. We shouldn't forget Yerushalayim. A memory. It doesn't say Zeichel Chorben, but Zeichel Mikdash. This one. We do things which are Zeichel Chorben. Talk about Avelus, Zeichel of the Chorben. Here we're doing things remembering Yerushalayim in its glory. And what was the glory of Yerushalayim? Well, one thing was that when it came to Sukkot, every single day they shook the lulav. So at the time of the Beis Hamikdash, only in Yerushalayim, you shook the lulav every day. Forget about the Shabbos bit. That was a separate piece, not for now. But it's 7-day mitzvah. Outside Yerushalayim, there's only a 1-day mitzvah of taking the lulav. When the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, to remind us of the simcha they had in Yerushalayim, we therefore shake the lulav. Chachomim made a mitzvah midrabanon of shaking the lulav zeichel hamikdash, a memory of the Beis Hamikdash in its full glory. Okay, and there's another ruling they made. So we've had a couple of rulings here. We've had rulings here about the shofar. Now we've moved on for further rulings after the destruction.
This one, bringing the lulav on the first day after the Churban in Yerushalayim was a drabanon.
I beg your pardon?
Bringing on the first day in Yerushalayim after the Churban presumably was also midrabanon.
No.
After the Churban.
After the Churban, everywhere is the first day or the 7 days?
Well,
everybody has a mitzvah min haTorah 1 day.
Yeah, 7 days. Sorry, the 7 days, which before the Churban would have been min haTorah in Yerushalayim, became presumably midrabanon.
It depends how you define Bamikdash in this Mishnah, or in the Mishnah we had before. Notice it said little bam. What does Bamikdash mean? Now Rashi on the previous Mishnah defines Mikdash as being, or outside B'Medina, outside Lo B'Yerushalayim v'Lo B'Gvulim. B'Medina is anywhere outside the Beis Hamikdash itself, right? So you're quite right. Today, even in Yerushalayim, according to Rashi, even at the Kosel, it's only a mitzvah midrabanon on Chol HaMoed, right? The Rambam defines on the Pirush HaMishnayos, the famous Rambam on Pirush HaMishnayos, and we can, I don't know if you've got the Pirush HaMishnayos on the, I will read what it says. Mikdash, writes the Rambam in his Pirush HaMishnayos on this. The Mikdash is the whole of Yerushalayim, which means the whole of the, called like the old city. Medina is outside the old city. So it comes like this. You've got to now define what is considered the old city. According to the Rambam, it's not just inside where the Beis HaMikdash is, it's extended a little bit further. And certainly if you're standing at the Kosel, you are certainly in the old city. You believe that for sure. If you're there by the Beis HaMikdash, you're not inside, but you're further there according to the Rambam. So therefore, according to the Rambam, you have amazing. If you are davening at the Kosel on Chol HaMoed, according to the Rambam, you'd be Mekayim even today a mitzvah of 7 days. It's true, we haven't got the mitzvah in the Beis HaMikdash, Zeichel HaMikdash, where they came into the Beis HaMikdash as well, that we haven't got. So Zeichel HaMikdash, they allowed everybody to shake the lulav 7 days, not just allowed, there's a mitzvah midrabanan. So in answer to your question, Simon, nowadays, everybody has a mitzvah 1 day min haTorah. The rest of the days, Chol HaMoed, the rest of the days, second day in Chutz Loitz, the rest of the days is a mitzvah midrabanan, shaking the lulav, reminding us of inside the Beis HaMikdash itself. But according to the Rambam, if you are at the Kosel, shaking the lulav, even today, that has still remained, because Bamikdash means the whole. When it says "Usmachtem lifnei Hashem Elokechem shivas yomim," I'm at the Kosel. It's true, I'm not right inside in the Beis Hamikdash itself, but I'm lifnei Hashem Elokechem. So it depends how you define lifnei Hashem Elokechem. Does it mean in front of? So it comes up very interestingly. If you're those people at the Kosel during Chol HaMoed, shaking the lulav, are actually, according to the Rambam, performing a mitzvah min haTorah. According to Rashi, not.
You could say there's no lifnei Hashem Elokechem.
You could. That's right.
Absolutely. Everything is Zeichel HaMikdash, even in the
You could do, but that would be more like Rashi, who said if smachtim lifnei Hashem Elokechem doesn't mean outside. Sadly, just the Kosel. That's not lifnei Hashem Elokechem. Lifnei Hashem Elokechem means actually going into the Beis Hamikdash with your korbanos and everything else and all the fanfare and the Simchas Beis HaShoeva. Not what we're doing outside. You're right. That will be Rashi. The Rambam will say lifnei Hashem Elokechem. Sadly, we haven't got all of that, but we've still got a part of it. And as we haven't got all of it, therefore there's a mitzvah midrabanan of 7 days. So it is interesting because there are certain leniencies about the Lulav and Esrog, without going all the halachas of Chol HaMoed compared to the first day. Because the first day is min haTorah. I'm not saying you can be very lenient, but there are certain leniencies. If you know the halachas, there's certain leniencies which we would apply on Chol HaMoed. For example, a very good example, lochem. The first day it says lochem, it's got to be yours. So if it's not yours, you have to ask somebody, I'm giving you this as a matana, it's yours. Hopefully you give it back to me. If you don't give it back to me, retrospectively, normally it won't be yours. So make sure you get it back, otherwise it won't be yours. But yes, there's a mitzvah lochem if you've got your own. Whereas during the week of the midrabanan, that doesn't apply. You could just borrow hopefully with permission, borrow someone's lulav. He doesn't have to actually give it to you as a matonas machzach, borrow it. Interesting. If you're at the Kosel, can you borrow someone's lulav to make a bracha? It would depend how you learn. If you learn according to Rashi, yeah, it's Chol HaMoed, I can borrow a lulav. There's no mitzvah lifnei Hashem Elokechem. That's only inside the Beis Hamikdash itself. I'm not. According to the Rambam, no, you can't. And therefore, if you're at the Beis Hamikdash, if you're at the Kosel, shaking a lulav, it really, according to the Rambam, if you want to pick that view up as well, and there are some people who go, especially every day of Chol HaMoed to the Kosel, dafka to shake the lulav, they're doing a mitzvah min haTorah according to the Rambam. If we pass like the Rambam, it's not clear, but that would be the only thing. If you are at the Kosel, then it would be best If you're asking somebody, would you mind give me this, please, as a matona manasa hachser, if you're making a brocha, because according to the Rambam, you can't make a brocha if it's borrowed at the Beis HaMikdash, because of the kachtim lochem. Woo, very interesting. Do you see the point there? So that's just a point worth bearing in mind.
Didn't you
yes.
said something about the esnachto, dividing that into two, and it's still that whichever way you, it's a lochem by Yom HaRishon. That lochem only applies for the Yom HaRishon, which.
No, you're right. You're very good. What about, so according to you, what's usmachten mean? Just enjoying having a dance?
No, well, we're interpreting that to mean you enjoy with the Arba Minim.
Well, what Arba Minim? Yeah, but what is the mitzvah of Arba Minim? The mitzvah of Arba Minim is having your own. That is the definition of it.
Okay.
You with me?
I see. Yeah,
the mitzvah of lulav is it's got to be yours.
Okay.
Midrabanon, if we're not in this posuk at all, then you can have a borrowed one. But as far as the Torah is concerned, when you're performing the mitzvah of lulav, it's got to be yours. So if it's going to be for 7 days, it'll have to be yours. That is the definition of the lulav. The lulav is a kachtim lachem. Yeah. So with that, gentlemen, we're halfway through the Mishnah, and then we get on to this Yom Hanaf, which is something we look forward to in due course. Are we okay for next week, gentlemen? You okay, Peter? Okay, went for a quick drink in the middle, but that's fine. No, sorry, I shouldn't say that. But thank you very much indeed. Oh, you're okay.
I'm fine. Apologies for the loss of me. I hope you were able to carry on, but my computer had a little power cut for some reason.
Okay. No, we learned something that it does continue even without the host, which is I didn't know that. Maybe other people didn't know that. Yeah, you probably some you knew that.
Not Midaraisa.
Oh, right, okay, you're Midrabanon.
Only if it's Peter who's the host. I mean,
all right,
powers.
Anybody else would have. That's an important lesson. People might, a lot of people Friday night disappear and they can continue eating and enjoying themselves without you being there, which has happened to places I've been to. Yes, I remember.